I walked into my childhood home and found nothing. Not even echoes. My baby, my piano, gone. Donated like some old couch. 2 days before my Juilliard audition, they said it was just taking up space, but I think they did it on purpose. And it gets worse. The church playing it during Sunday Mass? Yeah, it was never theirs to begin with. Tell me which city you're watching from in the comments. I seriously need to know if this kind of betrayal happens everywhere. Okay, let's jump into the story. I still remember the exact moment my world collapsed. March 15th, 3:47 p.m. I'd driven 6 hours from Manhattan back to my childhood home in Westchester, my fingers already practicing scales on the steering wheel. My Maine Coon cat, Debussy, meowed from his carrier in the back seat, probably sensing my nervous energy. The audition was in 48 hours. Not just any audition. The audition, Juilliard's late entry program for established musicians seeking their masters. They only took 3 pianists per year. At 31, this was my last shot before they'd consider me too old. I needed my piano. Not any piano. My piano. The 1947 Steinway Model M, my father bought me when I was 7, 3 months before the cancer took him. 24 years of muscle memory lived in those keys. Every important performance of my life had been practiced on that instrument. Mom knew this. She knew. But when I walked through that mahogany door, carrying Debussy and my overnight bag, the living room corner where my piano had lived for 2 decades was empty. Just 4 small indentations in the carpet where the legs used to rest. Mom, my voice cracked. Where's my piano? She appeared from the kitchen, wineglass in hand, her new diamond tennis bracelet catching the afternoon light. My stepfather Richard shuffled behind her, avoiding eye contact. Oh honey, we needed the space. Richard's installing a home theater system.
Isn't that exciting?
The room tilted. Debussy hissed. You got rid of my piano. My piano? Donated, she corrected, as if that made it better. To St. Catherine S. They needed one for their youth program. It's tax deductible. Tax deductible. When? I whispered. This morning. The movers just left actually. This morning. While I was driving here, practicing my audition piece in my head, they were loading my father's last gift onto a truck. How could you? My hands were shaking. You knew I was coming. You knew about the audition. Mom sipped her wine. Sweetheart, you're 31. It's time to be realistic about this music thing. Jennifer's daughter just got engaged to a radiologist. Maybe if you focused less on that piano and more on finding a nice man. I couldn't hear the rest. Blood rushed in my ears. 24 years of practice. 24 years of my father's memory. Gone. I called my piano teacher, Elliot, sobbing so hard I could barely get the words out. Debussy rubbed against my legs, purring his comfort. They what? Elliot's British accent sharpened with fury. The bloody idiots. Don't move. I'm coming. He arrived within an hour, his silver hair wild, his vintage Mercedes screeching into the driveway. Mom had retreated upstairs. Richard had fled to his golf club. Cowards. We'll fix this, Elliot said, examining the empty corner like a crime scene. But first, we need to know if the transfer was legal. What do you mean? The piano. It's in your name, isn't it? Your father's will? My heart skipped. Yes. Yes, it is. Elliot smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone about to wage war. Then technically, my dear, your mother just committed theft. And St. Catherine's is in possession of stolen property. But even if we could prove it, even if we could get it back, the audition was in 2 days. There wasn't time. That's when Elliot said something that changed everything. The sidewalk will be your stage. The next morning, Elliot orchestrated something I'd never seen before. He called it guerrilla piano protest performance art. I called it insane. But I was desperate. He borrowed an old upright from his storage unit, had his nephew and 3 friends carry it to the sidewalk directly in front of my mother's house. The suburban street had never seen anything like it. Mrs. Henderson from next door nearly dropped her Yorkie. What in God's name are you doing? Mom shrieked from the doorway. Practicing, I said, sitting on a milk crate Elliot had brought. Since you stole my piano, I'll practice here. You're embarrassing yourself. No, Mom, you embarrassed me. You embarrassed Dad's memory. I started playing. Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. The piece I'd chosen for Juilliard. The piece I'd practiced 10,000 times on the piano she'd given away. Something magical happened. The neighbors started coming out, first just to gawk, then to listen. Mr. Torres from across the street brought out his lawn chair. The teenage Mitchell twins stopped their basketball game. Even Mrs. Chen, who hadn't spoken to anyone since her husband died last year, opened her window. By noon there were 40 people on the sidewalk. Someone had called the local news. Elliot was fielding calls, turning it into a spectacle. Local woman forced to practice on street after mother donates piano before Juilliard audition. Mom tried to call the police. They came, took one look at the situation, and said as long as we weren't blocking traffic, it was perfectly legal. One officer even stayed to listen. Richard tried to negotiate. Sophie, please, come inside. We'll rent you a piano. Where's my Steinway, Richard? At the church. But they already what? That's when Father Michael arrived. I'd known him since childhood. He looked troubled, his collar slightly askew. Sophie, he said quietly, kneeling beside the upright. We need to talk about the piano. My fingers stilled on the keys. What about it? We never actually completed the donation paperwork. Your mother dropped it off this morning, but she left before signing the transfer. Technically what, Father? He looked directly at my mother, then back at me. That piano's not ours. We never signed for it. The crowd went silent. Mom's face drained of color. But I donated it, she protested. Father Michael shook his head. You abandoned it, Mrs. Davidson. There's a difference. Without proper documentation, it's still Sophie's property. The serial number is registered in her name. I stood up so fast the milk crate toppled. So I can take it back. Legally, yes. But Sophie, Father Michael looked uncomfortable. We already announced it to the congregation. The youth program kids were so excited. We haven't had a piano in 5 years. The guilt hit like a punch. Those kids needed music too. But this was my father's piano, my career, my life. Elliot stepped forward. Father, might I suggest a compromise? Everyone turned to him. Sophie needs the piano for 2 days. For her audition. After that, perhaps she could loan it to the church, with proper documentation this time. A loan, not a donation. But what about my practice? I asked. If I get into Juilliard. That's when things got weird. Really weird. A delivery truck pulled up. Not just any truck. Rossetti's Fine Instruments, the most expensive music store in New York. Sid Rossetti himself stepped out, his Italian suit impeccable despite the suburban setting. I'd met him once at a concert. He'd remembered me. Miss Sophie, he called out, his accent thick. I hear you have a predicament. Mr. Rossetti, what are you doing here? He gestured to the truck. I follow the news. A pianist without a piano before Juilliard. This is a tragedy. But also, he smiled. An opportunity. The back of the truck opened. Inside was a Bösendorfer 280 VC. A concert grand. Worth more than my mother's house. The crowd gasped. Mom actually staggered. I loan this to you, Sid announced loudly, making sure everyone heard. For your audition. And if you get in, we discuss sponsorship. Rossetti's Fine Instruments supporting the next generation of classical musicians. Beautiful story, no? It was a PR stunt. I knew it. He knew I knew it. But I didn't care. There's no room, Mom said weakly. We're installing the home theater. Then we put it here, Sid declared, pointing to the sidewalk. We make this street a concert hall. What happened next was chaos. Neighbors running for extension cords. The Mitchell twins setting up their DJ lights. Mrs. Chen bringing out her late husband's recording equipment. Within 2 hours, my mother's pristine suburban sidewalk had become an impromptu amphitheater. The Bösendorfer sat like a black diamond, under a borrowed tent, surrounded by lawn chairs and blankets. This is insane, I whispered to Debussy, who'd claimed his spot on top of the piano. This is justice, Elliot corrected. Now play. So I did. I played like my life depended on it, because it did. The local news turned into regional news. Someone started live streaming. Hish sidewalk. Sophie started trending. But the best part. When I finished the ballad, I heard something that made me stop breathing. Applause. But not from the crowd. From inside the house. From my mother's window. She was crying. The morning of the audition arrived gray and drizzling. Pathetic fallacy at its finest. I hadn't slept. The Bösendorfer had been moved to Elliot's studio for safety, but I'd practiced until 3 a.m. Mom hadn't spoken to me since the sidewalk concert. Richard had tried to mediate, but I was done with mediating. Done with being the good daughter who never rocked the boat. You ready? Elliot asked, adjusting my collar. We were in the Juilliard waiting room. 3 other pianists sat scattered around, all younger, all looking confident. No, I admitted. My hands won't stop shaking. Good. Means you care. Elliot, what if I don't make it? He grabbed my shoulders, forced me to look at him. Then you'll have tried, which is more than most people ever do. Sophie Chen, a woman with a clipboard, called. My stomach dropped. That's me. The walk to the audition room felt like walking to an execution. The panel sat behind a long table. 3 judges, all legendary pianists themselves. I recognized Martha Volkov from her recordings. Miss Chen, she said, her Russian accent soft but commanding. We heard about your unusual preparation circumstances. My cheeks burned. I hope that won't affect your judgment. On the contrary, adversity reveals character. Please, begin when ready. I sat at the Steinway Model D, not my piano, but a beautiful instrument nonetheless. I thought of Dad, of his hands positioning mine on the keys when I was 7, of him saying, music isn't just notes, Sophie, it's story. So I told a story. The ballad flowed from somewhere deeper than muscle memory. Every note carried the weight of the last 48 hours. The betrayal, the hurt, the unexpected grace of strangers, the complicated love for a mother who didn't understand me. Halfway through, I made a mistake, a wrong note in the development section, the kind of mistake that usually spirals into panic. But I didn't panic. I incorporated it, turned it into a momentary dissonance that somehow made the resolution more powerful. I made that piano tell the truth, mistakes and all. When I finished, the room was silent, dead silent. Martha Volkov was writing something. The other judges were expressionless. Thank you, Martha said without looking up. We'll be in touch. That was it. 4 years of preparation, a lifetime of dreams, over in 7 minutes. I walked out in a daze. Elliot was pacing the hallway. I made a mistake, I said numbly. Bar 127. I flatted a note that should have been natural. Did you recover? I think so. But Elliot, these are Juilliard judges. They don't accept mistakes. He hugged me then. This proper British man, who never showed physical affection. You played truthfully. That's all anyone can do. We drove back to Westchester in silence. The sidewalk was clear now. No evidence of yesterday's spectacle except a few scratches on the pavement. Mom was sitting on the porch, waiting. Sophie, not now, Mom. Please, just let me say this. I stopped but didn't turn around. Your father would be proud, she said quietly. I watched the live stream. All of it. You played just like him. That thing you do with your left hand in the soft passages, he did that too. You never told me that. I couldn't. It hurt too much. When you play, I see him. And when I see him, I remember losing him. I thought if the piano was gone, maybe the pain would be gone too. I turned then. She looked older somehow, smaller. But it doesn't work that way, she continued. The pain just turned into something worse. I turned into someone worse. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Unknown number. Manhattan area code. My heart stopped. Hello, Miss Chen, this is Martha Volkov. Elliot grabbed my arm. Mom stood up. Yes, the committee has made a decision. This is highly unusual, but given the circumstances and the viral attention your story has received. She paused. My entire life balanced on that pause. We'd like to offer you a position. Not in the traditional program. My heart sank. Oh, in our new Artist in Residence program. Full scholarship, performance opportunities, and we'd like you to help establish a community outreach initiative, bringing classical music to unexpected places, streets perhaps. I couldn't speak, literally couldn't form words. Miss Chen, are you there? She accepts. Elliot shouted, grabbing my phone. She absolutely accepts. The next few minutes were a blur. Details about orientation, housing, paperwork. When I finally hung up, I was crying. Mom was crying. Even Elliot was misty-eyed. There's something else, Mom said. She handed me an envelope. This came this morning. Inside was a single key and a note. Your piano is where it belongs. Storage Unit 47, Hudson Storage. The bill is paid through next year. And Sophie? I kept the transfer papers, unsigned. Father Michael, she'd gotten it back. Somehow Mom had gotten my Steinway back. 3 months later, I was standing on a different sidewalk, 125th Street in Harlem, outside the Apollo Theater. But this wasn't a desperate practice session. This was my first performance as Juilliard's artist in residence. We'd hauled my Steinway here, my actual piano, the one Dad bought me, the same piano that had almost been lost forever. The crowd was different from Westchester. Kids on bikes, elderly women with grocery bags, tourists with cameras. But they all stopped. They all listened. I was playing a piece I'd written myself. Sidewalk Sonata. It started with chaos, discordant notes, representing that awful day I came home to an empty corner. Then slowly, it built into something unexpected. Community, grace, the complicated harmony of a life that doesn't go as planned. Halfway through the performance, I saw her. Mom standing at the edge of the crowd, with Richard. She'd been coming to all my performances, driving down from Westchester every time. We were different now, not fixed, but trying. She'd started seeing a therapist, working through her grief about Dad. I'd started answering her calls again. The piece reached its climax, a callback to the Chopin ballad, but transformed made mine. The crowd swayed. Some were crying. A little boy near the front was conducting along with an invisible baton. As I played the final notes, something caught my eye. Sid Rossetti, true to his word about sponsorship, was setting up a banner. Rossetti's Fine Instruments presents Sophie Chen, Making Streets Sing. Shameless. I loved it. The last note rang out, hanging in the Manhattan air, like a question answered. The applause was immediate and thunderous. Thank you, I said into the microphone they'd set up. 3 months ago, my mother donated my piano without telling me. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And also somehow, the best. I found Mom's eyes in the crowd, because it taught me that music doesn't live in an instrument. It doesn't live in a concert hall. It lives in community. In the unexpected places where people stop and listen and remember that beauty exists, even on sidewalks, especially on sidewalks. Someone yelled, "Play another one." So I did. I played until the sun set behind the buildings, until the street lights came on, until Debussy, who'd become something of a mascot for these street performances, meowed that it was time for dinner. As we were packing up, a young girl, maybe 7, tugged on my dress. "Miss, my mom says you practiced on the street because someone took your piano." "That's right, but you got it back." "I did." She nodded solemnly. "Good. My dad sold my violin last month, said we needed the money." My heart cracked. I knelt down to her level. "What's your name?" "Maria." "Maria, do you want to learn piano?" Her eyes went wide. "But I don't have one." Neither did I. "But I found a way. Want to know a secret?" She nodded. "The church on 127th has a piano. Father William is a friend. If you tell him Sophie sent you, he'll let you practice. And if you need lessons." I handed her my card. "Call me." She ran off, clutching the card like a golden ticket. Mom appeared beside me. "That was kind of you. It's what Dad would have done." "Yes," she said softly. "It is." We stood there for a moment, 2 women learning to speak the same language again. "Sophie," Mom said, "I have something to tell you." "What?" "I'm selling the house." I spun to face her. "What? Why?" "It's too big, too many memories." And she smiled. "I want to use the money to start a foundation for young musicians who can't afford instruments. I was thinking we could call it the David Chen Memorial Fund. After your father." I couldn't speak. After everything, after all the pain and misunderstanding, she was trying to make it right. "Mom, I know I can't undo what I did. But maybe I can prevent other parents from making the same mistake." 1 year later, I was back in that same Juilliard audition room. But this time, I was on the other side of the table. They'd asked me to help judge the new applicants for the Artist in Residence program. Martha Volkov sat beside me, along with 2 other faculty members. Next, Martha called. A young man walked in, maybe 22, nervous as hell. He sat at the piano, the same Model D I'd played for my audition. "When you're ready," I said gently. He began, technically perfect, every note precise, measured, controlled, and completely soulless. When he finished, Martha looked at me. "Thoughts? Can I ask him something?" She nodded. "Why do you play?" I asked him. He looked confused. Because I'm good at it, but why? What makes you need to play? I don't understand. Have you ever had your heart broken? Lost something you loved? Has music ever been the only thing keeping you sane? No, I've been very fortunate, I smiled. Then go get your heart broken. Go lose something. Go find a reason to play that isn't about being good. Then come back. He left, looking bewildered. Martha chuckled. You've become quite the philosopher, Sophie. I learned from the best worst experience of my life. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Foundation's first recipient. Just got her violin. She's crying. Good tears. Love you. I texted back. Love you too. And I meant it. That evening, I went home to my apartment in Morningside Heights. Debussy was sprawled across my sheet music, as usual. But something was different. There was a box on my doorstep. No shipping label. Just my name, written in familiar handwriting. Mom's handwriting. Inside was a VHS tape and a note. Found this in the attic. Thought you should have it. I dug out my old VCR, who even has those anymore, and popped in the tape. It was my first recital, age 7, 2 weeks after Dad gave me the Steinway. There I was, tiny on the bench, feet dangling. And there was Dad, sitting in the front row, crying openly, as I played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, with all the seriousness of a concert pianist. But what got me was what happened after. The camera kept rolling. Dad came up to the piano, sat beside me on the bench. Sophia, he said. He was the only one who called me that. Promise me something. What, Daddy? Never let anyone tell you music isn't important. It's the most important thing in the world. Because music is how we say the things we can't say with words. Little me nodded solemnly. I promise. And if someone tries to take it away from you, I'll play anyway. That's my girl. The tape ended. I sat in my apartment, 25 years later, crying like I hadn't cried since the day he died. Because I'd kept my promise. When they took my piano, I played anyway. On a sidewalk, on a borrowed upright, on a Bösendorfer that cost more than most people's houses. I played anyway. My phone rang. Elliot. Sophie, turn on channel 7. I flipped on the TV. There I was. On the evening news, local pianist transforms street performances into musical revolution. They were covering my latest sidewalk concert, but also the David Chen Memorial Fund. 300 kids had received instruments so far. Mom was being interviewed, looking radiant. Music saved my daughter, she was saying, and it saved our relationship. Every child deserves that chance. Has a family member ever sabotaged your dream? Sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the most unexpected redemptions. I looked at my Steinway, sitting in the corner of my apartment where it belonged. Tomorrow, I'd haul it to another street corner. Next week, I'd play at Lincoln Center. But tonight, I'd play for myself, for Dad, for every kid who'd ever been told music wasn't practical. The piano that was stolen became the piano that started a revolution. And Mom, the woman who tried to take music from me, became its fiercest champion. Tell me in the comments, should I forgive her completely? Because honestly, I think I already have. Music really is how we say the things we can't say with words. Even I'm sorry. Even I forgive you. Even Dad would be proud of us both. Especially that. If you made it this far, you're incredible. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that sometimes the worst moments become the best plot twists. And remember, when life steals your piano, make the whole world your concert hall. Which city are you watching from? Let me know below. I read every single comment. Sophie.